So, why was Data Studio invented?
I would say Data Studio was invented because Google is a very data-driven company. You can see in AdWords that they try to create services that help people optimize their spend and get more for their money when they advertise on Google. So Google Analytics was invented and it's free. At least a very, very extensive version is free. And you have Google Optimize that's now out of beta, that's free to a large extent. There's Google Attribution. Google has the history of putting out free tools that help people do better marketing. And Data Studio fills the gap of visualization tools. You can use that for website data, for search data, for just about any data that can be fit into a spreadsheet. And I truly believe it helps people make their marketing better, which I think Google wants to both own that sphere of data visualization and analysis, as well as it wants to help advertisers even further with their ad spend on Google.
So, is there something specific about visualization that you think is important?
Yeah, as a communication part, at MashMetrics, we like to speak in terms of define, set up, analyze, and communicate when it comes to how you use your data to make your marketing better. And in the last one, in communicate, visualization is huge. When you can point something out, when you can tell a story with data, you like stories too, huh, Doug? When you can tell a story through a piece of content, and that piece of content can be a chart, it's much, much clearer. It's much easier to understand visual charts than it is to understand just spreadsheets of numbers.
How do people find this Google Data Studio? How do you find it?
So you go to datastudio.google.com. You see, I have a bunch of reports here. You have reports and you have data sources. And then when you create one, like we just created one here, you can share it with others. You can even make it available publicly. You can
Do I have to have a Google AdWords account to use this, or just analytics?
just any Google account.
Okay.
But to view them, you don't even have to have a Google account. You can even embed the dashboards on a website now, and they'll be live and interactive. But if you want to create your own or edit a dashboard or copy a dashboard, you want to have a Google account and go to datastudio.google.com.
Um, Great. So, what are three things that you can do with Data Studio that you think are really cool?
So there's a lot. Um, the interaction is really cool. You can, one thing that's super, super cool is, for instance, using the Data Studio Gallery. You can Google that. You can just type in Data Studio Gallery and this one comes up. You can go to any of these dashboards that are already made. You see some are quite creative about household income distribution, which then uses the Google Sheet data source. But then there's some for e-commerce sites. There's some for AdWords. There's Facebook ads. And you can just go into one of them. Let's try this one. That's a Google Analytics dashboard. And once you once you look at a dashboard made in Data Studio, as long as you found a link to view it, hey, look, they put an animated.
Animated GIF in there, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. But the cool thing I was going to show is that you can make a copy of this report, and then you can plug in your own data sources, and you'll have a report ready in minutes. So that's one. Another is, of course, the visualization part. So I'll show you something that we just created. Uh, we created, for instance, and these are going to be examples that are more advanced, but I think very, very hands-on. So uh, we created a dashboard that goes awareness, engagement, conversion. Actually, the pages now are in the order of conversion, engagement, awareness. And you can create some really, really cool charts that help you, for instance, with finding how close you are to the target. So let me find one. Um, like this one. Um, we have a target, which is this line here, and you can create it in the chart, which the target is based on the average session duration for this particular website and client for the previous quarter. So when you do that, you give context to your data instead of just saying it's 4 minutes 20, which it's 4:20 tomorrow, so that's pretty funny. Uh, but instead of just giving a number that doesn't really say much because it doesn't have context, you create the context of what's normal for you. Here, the normal for us is how it was last quarter. And when I look at just organic search for the selected time period, it compares that to the target. So it gives us context like this. Another really cool thing that I like a lot is that you can use multiple data sources on one page. And you can either do that with the native data sources, which Google creates, or there's providers. For instance, we use MashMetrics as a provider of data sources. Because normally, what happens when you create dashboards is that it's kind of hard to report on multiple platforms. You usually report either just on the website in Google Analytics, or just on your AdWords in your AdWords interface, or just on your Facebook ads in your Facebook ad stats, or your Facebook insights for your organic stats about your Facebook page. Here, you can put it all into one page. You just need to find the right data sources and the right connectors. And then you can create comparisons, which again, give you great benchmarks and great context. So for instance, here, we're analyzing Facebook paid, Google organic, and Google AdWords. And you see that we pick those deliberately for the client because they are pretty active on all of those. For each client, when we create this particular page, we pick Google Organic pretty much always because that one is significant for everyone. Then we pick one social platform or channel and one other that's paid. So for this one, for this client, the combination is Facebook paid, Google organic, Google AdWords, a very, very common combination of platforms that people are very active on. And we'll first look at volumes in terms of how many people saw our content. These are all on the same scale we see from 0 to 2,000, 200,000. This one is a little over 200,000. It's all over the usual. So we first look at the impressions. Then, as we can still see the impressions, we'll look at clicks. And again, it's on the same axis for amount of clicks, topping off at 4,500. And we see it for all the three platforms next to each other. Then we look at click-through rates, where we use Facebook ads as the benchmark because that's their biggest paid channel. And we compare the click-through rates on organic Google as well as on paid Google to Facebook ads. So everything is in context, nothing's taken out of context. This kind of analysis is much more telling. And then the last thing we look at is the bounce rate. So you see we went from volume to quality of your traffic and also the quality of your campaigns when you look at click-through rates and how well those perform. And that's all in context and all on one page. That's one of my favorite things about Data Studio.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit. You're getting this data visualized because you are connecting Data Studio with the client's analytics, and you're asking analytics to then provide the data. Like, how are you? Where are you getting? Are you manually putting this Facebook paid?
So when you create a dashboard,
There you go.
and then you create a chart on a dashboard, you need a data source for it. For us, for this particular one, the data sources are Google Analytics, Google Search Console, and Facebook ads. So sometimes if I want to pull data about Facebook, for instance, the bounce rate, that's data coming from Google Analytics because bounce rate is a metric from the website data from Google Analytics. When I want to look at click-through rates, that's data from Facebook directly. And I can either create that when I create that connection when I go to this chart, and then it's going to ask me select data source. I can also go to Data Studio, um, just the homepage, datastudio.google.com, and then go to data sources and create them. And I'll show you how they will be done. Uh, where's that button for creating a new one?
On the
Um,
bottom right,
oh, I see. It was covered for me by
by
thumbnail
my
of
by
our
my
pieces.
picture.
Yeah, yours and mine. So um, you see, these are the data sources, Google connectors at the top. You can upload a file for images. Then everything that's Google, of course, integrates really well. So AdWords, attribution, if you have the 360. BigQuery, though, is great. Double-click manager is very common. Google Analytics, of course. Google Sheets. Google Sheets is a data source that you can use for everything that doesn't have a connector. Because whatever you can upload into a Google Sheet can then be used as a Data Studio data source. You can use some Zapier integration to make that more automated. Use your Search Console, YouTube Analytics. And then, not long ago, I think it was in the fall, Google opened up Data Studio to community connectors. So now there's companies such as Supermetrics that create connectors for you. And it's either that they create a connector for a platform that Google didn't create a connector for. For instance, CallRail is a call tracking software, really good company. I actually use it for a client. And they created their own connector for Data Studio because for them too, they realized that if people look at stats about phone calls generated by campaigns, if they look at those stats more, then they will be acting on them more, and they'll probably keep paying for the call tracking service for longer, or maybe recommend it more. So it's either the community connectors are created for platforms that don't have a Google connector, or the connectors will be for platforms that already do have a Google connector, but maybe it can be done better. Maybe more metrics can be reported on. For instance, when we have, I'll show an example here. For instance, for multi-channel funnels, if you want to know where your clicks come from before somebody opts in, before somebody signs up for an email, it usually doesn't happen on the first visit. And so this report here is a Google Analytics report, or this chart is based on Google Analytics data, but it came from a community connector because the Google connector, what Google created for you, doesn't allow you to look at the different channels that people were touched by or reached by before they opted in for an email. The community connector by Supermetrics does let you do that. That's a pretty cool one. We just started using
What's it called again? Supermetrics calls it what?
community connector.
Community. Yeah, community.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not the only person recommending this company a lot, so I'll just do that. We have no affiliation; we're actually paying client, but I'm very happy to recommend them. They have products for a whole lot of different data uh, solutions. The one we use is Supermetrics for Google Data Studio, where they have all these different connectors for different platforms. So yeah, and the pricing, if you use it enough, the pricing is not bad.
Great. So great. So we've got all these different choices for connectors. You can even just take your Excel spreadsheet, upload it
Yeah.
into a Google
Mhm.
spreadsheet, and then it will then allow you to then call up that that data and then match it or display it in a visual format.
Yeah, and I'll show an example of a Google Sheet that's really cool and very, very relatable. Um, you can get super creative with this, and I absolutely love this example here. So, household income by state. You see that there was some manual work put into this. They place the states more or less where they would geographically be, but these are just bar charts with
Right.
simple legends, and this must be based on a sheet because there is no household income data in Google Analytics or any other marketing platform. So people created dashboards in Data Studio for household income, for which country won the most medals, Super Bowl commercial, movie stats, all kinds of stuff. For marketing purposes, if you have your blog that you're monetizing, if you are a marketing agency or a marketing department and you need to report to a client or a boss, you you can rest assured that Google Data Studio will cover any data source, any sort of platform that you're marketing on.
Right.
For
And
everybody,
this was taken from the U.S. Census Bureau, so it was probably just a spreadsheet that they downloaded from their website.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But now with the community connectors, you get away um, with using is it here? Yeah. Now you get away with using Google Sheets less and less as a data source, because now more and more community connectors are being built for other platforms such as eBay. Amazon has a couple. Facebook has connectors for both organic and paid stuff. AdRoll for remarketing. Now there's actually two AdRoll connectors. Bing Ads. Um, so there's
Constant Contact.
Constant Contacts. There, Mailchimp is here.
Hmm.
A couple or a few email providers are here. LinkedIn ads, but also company pages, and they keep getting added more and more. Reddit, even though I didn't know about that one. Reddit.
Wow,
Yeah,
interesting.
you'll be covered.
How? Why would I want to use them? Why would I want to use this?
Well, I think this answers your next question too, based on my notes. How will it help me connect my message to more people? That's really the benefit of this. It helps you bring your message to more people. When you go to Google Analytics, you see a lot of data you do not want to see, and sometimes also hard to get to the data that you do want to see. So the best way to use Google Analytics when you use it for reporting is that you go there with a question in mind or a few questions in mind, and you just look for answers. If you start looking around, there's so much to click on that you mostly just get lost, or you leave your session in Google Analytics, your focus time, your focus 10 minutes without getting anywhere. So Google Data Studio makes it much, much easier to use for anyone, whether you're a marketer or you're a client that hires a marketing company, or you're just feeling geeky today and want to show some things to someone. You get to the data that you want much quicker, and you get to the data that you want no more, no less.